Hi, it's Bumble. Welcome back to my channel. So this is going to be pretty short. I don't really have a lot of notes on this movie. I feel I feel conflicted with this one because it's one of those that based on the description and the trailer, I thought it was going to be completely different. It isn't even really horror or anything. Not really. It comes off more as like a dark comedy rather than like thriller or a horror. So I feel a little misled. But at the same time, it was like weird enough where I feel like I kind of enjoyed it enough to like want to talk about this, but also that I don't feel mad for being misled. Okay, so this is a movie like when you watch the trailers and you read the description, you think like, okay, it's a horror movie about this guy who escapes from a mental institution and kidnaps this 90s pop star because he's in love with her and stuff. And you think it's going to be like one of those like the weird horror romantic movies of like this person stalking a woman inside of her house and being creepy and whatever. And it's kind of not. Like, he holds people hostage and stuff. He doesn't even kidnap her. Most of this takes place in her own home. This movie, I think, was like either an hour and a half or 2 hours, but the first hour is actually really boring and slow to the point where I'm like, the two characters haven't even met each other yet. What is happening with this movie? When is she gonna get kidnapped? It's funny because I vented about that to my dad when he like came in the room at that point, and then the girl ended up getting kidnapped, and we're both like, okay, finally. And he wasn't even watching the movie with me from the start. And then I finished the rest of it like a couple of days later, but that's the thing that bothered me with it, is it just kind of like took forever. And if you expect the movie to be a certain way, because that's how it's advertised and stuff, like even this poster and everything of her being like stuck on that chair and whatever, but no, this is a comedy. It's just like a really weird comedy. But yeah, the first hour is kind of like it's semi-important because there's all these side characters. There's like the bodyguard of the pop star and stuff and his family, and they end up becoming involved. And there's also this friend that the pop star has. I don't remember what his name is, so I have him in my notes as the friend. I wish I remembered what it was. But the kidnapper guy, his name's Paul, and the pop star, her name is Sophia. This actress, by the way, that plays Sophia, I think her name's wait, I had it written down. Samara Weaving. Yeah, I've seen her. I think she's the same one actress from the movie Ready or Not. I watched that like a couple months ago, but I didn't make a review of it. Where it's like this crazy family and she has to like escape the house or something. And I think there's a couple other horror movies she's been in. Like, I was reading Letterboxd about this movie after I watched it, where I guess she's just kind of in this. There's been multiple horror movies where she has to like forced to marry a guy that's like mentally unstable or whatever. So I guess this is a whole thing, but I feel like she's good in these kind of roles where you know, she's being targeted by this creepy person, but she's not like in distress or anything. This movie almost reminds me of like Napoleon Dynamite in a way. I think in just like its comedic timing and how the characters just don't really seem to care about the things that are happening around them, and where there's sort of just kind of like an awkward feel around the whole movie. I don't know how to explain it. They almost remind me of like Wes Anderson characters in a sense, where they're in all these situations, but they don't really emote about them or anything. Like, there's like a in-universe reason for that, of that the characters know that Paul will act super violent if they don't feed into his delusion, but it's also that the characters just don't even know what the fuck's going on after a certain point, where no one really like screams or panic. And it's almost kind of refreshing because you're so used to that with like movies and stuff where the characters are in danger or someone has a knife or whatever, and I mean that is kind of the normal reaction to like freak out and stuff. That's completely understandable, but it's almost nice not to have that. Okay, so most of my notes are about the characters. Paul I don't remember if they say what his mental illness is exactly. It's just that he escaped a mental institution. So he's really delusional to the point where that delusion fully kicks in at the end, where he starts mistaking people for other people. But like towards the beginning, he seems okay in that he can at least recognize people. It's more of like at the beginning the delusion of like thinking that this woman is in love with him when they don't know each other and he's like her stalker and stuff. But he's like a pretty funny character and stuff. He's just so like calm about everything, or just his interactions with people. He's like kind of a jokester. Like before he even gets into the house, when he like breaks in or whatever, he's like interacting with the bodyguard and stuff. And just kind of comes off as like a bit pathetic and whatever, where you think he wouldn't be a threat, but then he ends up being a threat. Where he like tries to be romantic towards Sophia. He invites the bodyguard's daughter to be a flower girl at their like fake wedding and stuff. Like he has all these people kidnapped by his two goons just for this fake wedding that doesn't even take place in the house. It takes place in like a church somewhere. And the goons are pretty cool. One of them, I don't remember the name of, is this bald guy that is kind of a bit dumb or whatever. Like he's sort of following orders and sort of whatever. Like there's a point where he holds a child hostage and the other characters are like, hey, put the gun down or whatever, you can let her go. And the guy's like, no, I have to take her hostage or use her as leverage. Weddings are supposed to be fun or whatever. Like he's stupid, but he is still a threat. But then the other hench person is probably my favorite character in this, because she was like really funny in that she was just a complete fucking psycho. Her name's Penny. She's French. She has to go around kidnapping and attacking people, but she seems to enjoy it. She's always smiling and giggling and whatever. And the thing is, she knows that Paul is like crazy and knows that Sophia isn't in love with him, but she finds Paul so entertaining. She like explains it to Sophia at a certain point of like, oh, he's like watching a really good movie, so she like follows his orders and stuff because she just finds him funny. She's just so smiley and crazy though. It's almost it's almost a bit disturbing in like watching her like kill people, or she shows up to Paul after she kills someone, and the camera reveals her. She opens the door and she's sitting cross-legged, like crisscross applesauce, on top of a box with a body in it. And the body turns out to be a priest who's like very much alive, but she's sitting on the box and she's like, hey, I killed someone for the first time, yippee, or whatever, that kind of like vibe. Her conversations with Sophia are kind of funny though, where she literally says to Sophia's face, like, hey, I'm disappointed. I thought you'd be prettier. And talks to her just so casually while still having, like, blood in her face from attacking someone earlier in the movie. She doesn't even try to clean it off or anything. And then they end up singing a duet together, and I thought that scene was also kind of funny. Because it'll cut to shots of like what the other characters are doing, and they're not really doing anything. They're just kind of sitting around. Like there's a point where Paul just has a bunch of people captured and they're all just kind of staring at each other, and then it goes back to the scene of Sophia and Penny singing together, and it's a good duet. I need to look up who the actress that plays Penny is, because she has like a really good voice, and it's funny because she sounds better than Samara Weaving's character, who is supposed to be like a world famous pop star and whatever. And their duet's good, and you're like enjoying the scene and whatever. And then all of a sudden Penny shoves Sophia out of a window because Sophia accidentally sings like a flat note or something. And then she just ends up being more crazy and like tries to burn Sophia alive, and then accidentally ends up getting burned alive herself. And there's like this energetic music when they're fighting that sort of makes the fight sort of fun, and then the music completely stops when Penny ends up getting like burned alive in a little recording booth thing or whatever, and then she's out of the movie from there, and it's just kind of like, aw, because she was like a fun character. There's a part where Sophia actually does try to defend herself. Well, she tries like a couple times, like when Paul sneaks. I like the way Paul's revealed to her, where Sophia's just in her kitchen doing something, and Paul is like right behind her and then goes, "Hey, Ladybug," and like sniffs her hair or whatever, and she's like frozen, slightly out of fear, but slightly out of like, what the hell is going on, if anything. And then she tries like throwing things at him. I think more out of her being upset of like this creepy stalkers in her house. And then she ends up at one point picking up a guitar and is ready to attack someone, and she ends up attacking her friend. I'm gonna look up what her friend's name is, actually. That kind of bothers me that I keep having to refer to him as her friend, but he's like a cool character. I'm gonna talk about him. Borderline. I hadn't heard of this movie, by the way. I was on Peacock and I just kind of stumbled on it. I thought the poster looked kind of interesting. It meant it was gonna be like a weird romance movie or something, so I was like, okay, cool, I'll watch it. And it was a weird romance movie. I just thought it was going to be like a kidnapping horror movie and stuff. Let me see. Oh, okay, the actor playing Paul, I thought so. His name's Ray Nicholson. I thought, oh, just kind of like Jack Nicholson. You know how people have like the same last names and stuff, even if they're not related. No, it's his son. You know what? That makes sense. His character sometimes has like a weird look in his eye, and it's something about the smile that felt familiar that reminded me of The Shining. No, duh, it's because they're related. Oh, the bodyguard's name is just Belle? Okay, hold on. I'm trying to see what the name... Okay, and Sophia and her new boyfriend, professional basketball player, Devonte Rhodes. His name's Devonte? I feel like I should have remembered that. He's just referred to as Rhodes, though. I don't remember them ever referring to him as name. Okay, I guess his name is Rhodes. Yeah, he has like the most normal reaction to things compared to everyone else. It's kind of funny, where there's one point when Paul mistakes Rhodes for Sophia, and it continues like that until the end of the movie, and Paul is saying all these things about, as if he's talking to Sophia, of like being in love with you and whatever, and then he's finally done with this little romantic monologue or whatever, or something, and Rhodes is just like, dude, what the fuck are you talking about? And it's like, yeah, that is the normal way to react to something like that. I thought Paul was gonna have more of like a backstory, because he mistakes multiple people for other people throughout the movie, but especially mistaking people for Sophia. He's escaped from a mental hospital. One of the characters just casually mentions that Paul's old girlfriend dropped dead in the middle of a Sophia concert, and I thought the characters were eventually going to unpack that. But they don't. It's just kind of mentioned. I don't know if that's the reason why he's so obsessed with Sophia, or I thought maybe because he has some kind of like, I don't even know if I can call it facial blindness or whatever, but just, mistaking people for other people. I thought maybe he was mistaking Sophia the whole time for his old girlfriend, but he does call her Sophia, like, to her face sometimes when saying, like, he's in love with her or whatever. So I thought, okay, he's in love with Sophia, but then he keeps mistaking other people for Sophia and even kissing them. So I don't know what the deal of that is. The movie doesn't explain it or anything, why he's like this. He's just he just hallucinates a lot. They don't ever say. It gets kind of confusing because it happens more towards the end of the movie, and the characters keep trying to correct him and he just does not believe them. The wedding dress being blue, it looked pretty, but I thought that was kind of weird. And there's a wedding scene, and the wedding scene was actually pretty funny, and that's when the movie was kind of reminding the most of like Napoleon Dynamite, where Rhodes ends up being the one to marry Paul because Paul thinks that Rhodes is Sophia, and even kisses him, and they get like legally married, and Rhodes knows what's going on and so does everyone else, but he's kind of willing to marry Paul to like protect everybody, but seems sort of fine with it. And Sophia keeps trying to say like, hey, I'm over here, that's not me, up by the altar. Like at one point she even literally tells Paul she's fine with marrying him. She's like, okay, fuck it, I'll marry you. You're the only person that wanted to marry me anyway. And, you know, she's like admitting to being fine with it or whatever. And then Paul just tells her like, ma'am, this is not about you. Sit down. Like he refuses to believe that that's Sophia. Like still believing she's some kind of like guest at the wedding or whatever. He doesn't even refer to her by name. And then we see Paul's POV as he's kissing Rhodes, and he really does see Rhodes as Sophia. And even I like the ending scene where then they, continuing with the hallucination, they happily walk out of the church together to get inside of a limousine, like one of those like just married ones. And then it cuts back to what actually is happening in reality, where Paul is being put into a police car. They end up actually taking him down pretty easily. Like him and his henchmen are there. Paul ends up, it's weird because he's like hallucinating that Rhodes is Sophia, but then at one point I think stabs or shoots Rhodes in like the stomach or something. And for a second, if you look at Paul's face, he almost looks like the hallucination is broken, or realizing like, oh, this person I just legally married isn't Sophia. But then after that, the hallucination continues. So I don't really know what was going on with that. But Rhodes ends up being fine, which is good. I thought it was kind of funny when there's this girl that ends up being held hostage, like I mentioned, and her father, who's the bodyguard, is trying to say to the guy, like, hey, you don't want this on your conscience, and the guy is like, I don't have one of those. And normally, like, said in a certain way, that line could seem kind of horrifying or whatever, you know, but this guy is, like, kind of dumb, and he, like, truly believes he doesn't have a conscience or whatever. But then he ends up getting stabbed, or like, yeah, by Rhodes or whatever. That's the one thing. People keep getting like shot or killed in this movie, but no one actually dies or gets injured enough where it really does anything. Some characters are knocked out for like a couple of minutes, and there's a guy that literally gets shot in the head and he just ends up fine, like completely fine, and is able to attend the wedding and stuff. That was kind of the one thing that bothered me. Like, the only person who, like, I think actually dies is Penny when she's, like, burned alive and stuff. And even then, that was, I think, an accident. So, I don't know. And then, Paul's arrested. Rhodes ends up going to the paramedic. And that's kind of about it. I don't know if he continues, because Rhodes is originally the one dating Sophia, and then he makes this analogy to feeling like a puzzle halfway through, like right before Paul officially shows up, of like, yeah, you built me up and then you want to just take me down again. I know you don't love me anymore. And they never really resolve that either. Like, she jokes to him of like, oh, hey, do you want to get married? And Rhodes is like, no, I'm already a married man, like saying how he technically like legally got married to Paul. Like, there was a priest there for their wedding, but it was a kidnapped priest, so I don't know if it still counts. The ending did kind of remind me of one of the parts of The Graduate, actually, where Paul is like so delusional he thinks he's married to Sophia, and he's talking to the driver of the police car and he believes it's a limo, but like from what we're seeing with it being a film, he's like actually in a limo. And he's talking about like getting dropped off as a hotel and starting their honeymoon. And then the camera, like, it doesn't cut to black or anything for the credits. The credits just appear in the screen and the camera is still focused on Paul. And eventually he just starts like crying. It reminded me of the ending of The Graduate, where the camera stays on the characters and you realize, oh, they're not as happy as they're supposed to be in this situation. I don't know why Paul's crying. I don't know if like the hallucination just kind of stops after a while, or he realizes like, oh, I got arrested and I'm never going to see Sophia again. So there was some things in this that were just kind of confusing. The movie doesn't really explain. I don't know if it's because it's just like a comedy that doesn't really take itself like too serious. It's like a dark comedy. So I don't, which I think is fine, and I enjoyed it. I just wish it was marketed that way rather than seeming like it's going to be a thriller about this woman being kidnapped or something. Especially because when you like see the little blurb of it on Peacock, it only really shows the part where Sophia's just in the dark in her kitchen, and then right like when Paul shows up or whatever. So I just find that disappointing of like I'm fine with what the movie turned out to be. I just wish I wasn't originally misled. Because if I'd known it was going to be like this, I still would have watched it anyway. Heck, I would have been more excited for it. I just feel a little disappointed in that regard of being being made to think it was something else. But it was alright, actually. I don't know if it's on anything else besides Peacock. And then I added a bunch of other movies to my list. I want to watch The Crow. I found some of the Chucky movies, but not the first one, but like every other thing, show and movie related to Chucky. Like Child's Play, I mean, is on there, just not the original movie. But I found the one I've heard with those movies, because I used to like watch clips of them when I was in middle school for some reason, that they like seem to get less serious and scary the more they go on. Like I found the one where he gets married and his wife ends up as a doll, and then there's like another one after that where they somehow have a child, but the child is a doll, and that sounded kind of silly, so I think I'm gonna watch those. I might make like a double review on those. I'm curious about The Crow. I've heard it's supposed to be pretty good. I think I have the original Candyman on my list as well. And then I found this Spooky the Square Pumpkin little like 45-minute movie. I used to have a book on the characters, so I feel a little nostalgic, so I'm just like, fuck it, I'll watch that too. I don't know which of those I'm going to watch first, but I'm going to watch like one more movie tonight. It might be one of those. It might be the Steamboat Willie movie. I don't know. I have to go decide right now. But yeah, that's Borderline. I wasn't going to make a review on it, but then the movie kind of... once you get past the first hour, it kind of picks up a little bit. Oh, one more thing. There was a whole little montage where Paul, before he even meets Sophia, like she's at home currently, where he ends up just trying out a bunch of shit in her house. Like he takes a bath, he uses her toilet, he gets his clothes all cleaned, and just runs around her house doing shit. That was actually kind of funny. I liked that part. Okay, yeah, that's about it. See you next time.